Right now, dynasty managers are making the same rookie draft mistake they make every single year, and most of them don't even realize it until their team is stuck for the next 2 or 3 seasons. I'm seeing 3 major mistakes that people are making in rookie drafts going on right now, and if you avoid these, you immediately put yourself back at the top of your league and getting yourself drafting in the best way possible. Let's get into it. My name is Caleb and welcome to the Dynasty Edge HQ, where we help you think like a GM so you can take your teams from rebuilding to winning for many years to come. And if you find anything actionable or helpful in this video, subscribe down below, comment your team, any trades you're making, what things you've been doing in your drafts. I would love to know, and I always try to comment back to you. Also, if you haven't already, grab my rookie draft guide. The link is in the description and in the top comment down below. It'll help you draft the best way possible, knowing hit rates for different players, where they're drafted in the actual NFL draft. I know it's helpful. It's been helpful to so many people, and I really want to get into your hands, and it's completely free. So let's get into the video today. Mistake number 1 that I'm seeing everybody make, it happens every year. I've said this in so many different videos. People are drafting for need over value, and they're doing it over and over and over again. There are too many times that I'm seeing players get pushed up boards because a team has a need at running back, they have a need at quarterback, they have a need at wide receiver, and so they're pushing players higher than they need to be. I've seen so many times different players like Kenyon Sadiq, or I've seen Fernando Mendoza go higher than I think that he's going to go, or Jonah Coleman go higher, because people are just obsessed with getting their player and the position that they need on their roster instead of just getting the most valuable player right then. You know, your current starting lineup should not dictate the next 4 years of your team. So don't just make choices based off of your starting lineup. Get the most valuable player at your position or trade back to get more value. I've seen a lot of people trading up, which I mean, you know, some people are trading back, but I think if you have a player in mind and he is not as valuable as the pick you currently have, trade back in the draft, especially if it's within the same tier. You can get more value, like a second or a third round pick if you're moving back a few picks. If you're getting completely out of the round, you might want to take at least a first round for next year or in 2028 if you're going out of the first round. Those are just great moves to make if you can in your leagues, but just stop trying to get players that you need on your team. Draft for value all the time. Then after the draft, trade for need. Now, if somebody's slipping down the draft and it happens to fit a need of yours, you can always trade back up into the draft and try to get that player if they're fitting within your tier and they're at a great price. I think that's a great value, a good thing to do. I've done that a few times in leagues already, that I've tried to trade back into a round to get a player that's dropping. I think that's fine to do, but I think that you definitely should stop trying to draft for need. It is a terrible strategy. It's never going to set yourself up to win, and unless you have a need and the value is right and you can draft that player, I think that's totally fine. But just overdrafting players at a high value position is just never going to be a winning strategy. Too many times people are taking Casey Concepcion way too high, or they're taking Denzel Boston way too high. They're letting Kenyon Sadiq drop 3 or 4 picks because he went to the Jets. These are just bad moves. Draft for value, get the best player, and go off those hit rates that I gave you in my draft guide. That's really, really, really going to help you find the right players at the right dynasty value. And something just to remember is that a bad dynasty pick doesn't just hurt for 1 season. Sometimes it can hurt for 3. So what you do now can hurt you for the future. If you reach on a player and it doesn't work out, that could hurt you for the future. These picks are valuable. This is a big deal. This is part of playing dynasty. You have draft picks. So always overdrafting and always picking the player that you need is not a winning strategy. Getting value is always going to set yourself up for the future in the best possible way. Pick players that are popular, pick players that are in the value that you're currently picking at, and you're going to find yourself really setting yourself to win. And then during the season, when that player pops off, you can sell at a higher rate, and I think that's a great strategy. Now, mistake number 2 is that people are buying landing spots over draft capital. That's something that's happening so much. One of the biggest things that I'm currently seeing right now is I am seeing Jonah Coleman go as high or right around the same range as Kenyon Sadiq. I think that is a terrible valuation. They see that Denver landing spot for Coleman and they just fall in love with it. And so they're overdrafting him. And I have had Kenyon Sadiq drop to my lap in the late first round so many times, and I'm so happy because I know the hit rate. When a tight end goes in the first round, no matter what team they go to, I don't care that he went to the Jets. I don't care that he went into a bad situation. The statistics don't lie. He has a 70% chance of being a tight end one in his career. I'm going to take that over a fourth round running back who's at least 3 or 4 on the depth chart from day one. I think that's a better bet to make. So make the bet at the position. Don't fall in love with players just because they're landing spots. We've seen it time and time again, players going to this amazing landing spot and then it all just falls apart. I think that we have to keep in mind where these players are drafted, and then we can make that decision in our rookie drafts based on where they're drafted, what round they're drafted, and then we can take into account what team they are. Don't put the team over a player that was drafted much higher than that. Like Mekhi Lemon went to the Eagles. People might think, oh, A.J. Brown's gone. Mekhi Lemon's just going to be the number one from day one. Well, Devonta Smith is still there, and the Eagles have a very low volume passing offense, and that isn't the best situation. So he should not be regarded over Tyson. Tyson goes into a Saints situation. He was drafted 8th overall. That is a great position to be drafted in, and the value goes up significantly, and the percentage of hit rate goes up significantly when you are drafted in the top 10. That's a great position. Don't fall into the trap of taking players because of where they were drafted or what team they were drafted on over the value that you have in front of them. There's so many times that things can happen and veterans can get hurt. Situations can change. What if Geno Smith has an amazing year with the Jets this year? He might not and most likely will not, but what if he does? And it raises up the whole team. You never know what happens. So don't just draft off of the team. Draft on where those people are happening, where the draft capital is in the actual NFL draft. People like to draft on depth charts. Sharp dynasty managers draft off of talent and team investment. So keep that in mind. If you're truly thinking like a GM, you're going to think about where these players were drafted, what the team invested in them, and then make that decision going forward. And don't just fall in love with that. So mistake number 3 is chasing ceiling while ignoring hit rates. This is another massive thing that happened. And this is kind of also goes into that Coleman debate as well. Coleman goes in the 4th round, which has around a 20% hit rate versus a player like even Casey Concepcion, which has a 50% hit rate in the first round to be a wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. So taking players just based off of the ceiling, like, if Coleman takes over that backfield, he is just gone. That's just a bad way to play, especially when they're drafted in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds. It's just such a hard bet to make, and the percentage is so low. It does not happen that often. It can happen, and that's why I think drafting after the first round, drafting running back like all the rest of the way is a great strategy to have because you never know what a guy can do. But putting your premium draft pick on a player that was drafted in the 4th round and above is a very risky move to make. Another big one is Nick Singleton was drafted in the 5th round by the Titans. Now, yes, the Titans situation is pretty wide open, but Nick Singleton was drafted in the 5th round. That is not premium draft capital. That is a low draft position, and he has to really work his way up. Do I think he's very talented? Yes, but I think so many people are overdrafting him, and it's dropping better players down the board that people are getting. I've seen him go over Boston. I've seen him go as high as Stowers. I think there's a horrible decision to make in your league because I think it sets your team up to lose because you're putting all your draft picks into a player that was drafted in the 5th round. So avoid that mistake. Don't fall into that trap of just falling in love with the ceiling of a player that might happen because of what they did in college. You're my guy. Don't act like you know more than the teams that are drafting. These teams are putting millions of dollars in these players. They are telling you how much they value them based on where they pick them. So just keep that in mind. A 5th round pick, the Ravens gave their owner a 5th round pick just to pick himself, and he was able to do that. So that's the value of a 5th round pick. If you're putting that in perspective of like a Nick Singleton, Jonah Coleman in the 4th round, I think these are players that we have to be cautious of, but it's great to take after the 1st round if you have a bunch of picks to be able to take chances on players. Yes, you can draft those raw athletes. Yes, you can go after these things, but stop overdrafting players based on need, based on where they're drafted at, and based on what their ceiling is. You don't know their ceiling, and that's a risky way to play. Unless your team is stacked forever and you have so many players and so many picks and you can just take all the risk you want, it's okay to take risk. But that is just a bad way to play, especially with putting your own money on the line. Listen to the story the NFL is telling you. Act like a GM, make moves like a GM, and get your team set up for the future. Follow your tiers and really try to draft the most value you can and stop looking for the next outlier. It's just really hard to draft that way, and you're going to set yourself up to lose. Try not to make these mistakes in your leagues. Try to draft better. Look at my draft guide. I think that it's such a great way to draft based off of hit rates. That's how I've been drafting, and I feel really confident with how my drafts are going so far, and I'm really excited to see how you guys are drafting. So let me know what things you're doing, where you drafted, what people you've drafted at different picks that you have. Would love to know that. I love getting your trade questions. So shoot them down below, grab the draft guide, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.